Selim drew up the feudal cavalry of Anatolia on his right wing, under Sinan Pasha, and the feudal cavalry of Rumelia on the left, under Hassan Pasha. He placed his batteries at the extremity of each wing, masking them by the light troops of his army, the Azabs, who were designed to fly at the enemy's first charge and lure the best Persian troops under the muzzles of the Turkish guns. The Janissaries were a little in the rear, in the center, protected by a barricade of baggage wagons. Behind them were the Sultan's horse guards, and there Selim took his own station. On the other side Ismail drew up two chosen brigades of cavalry, one on each side of his line, one of which he led himself, and the other was entrusted to the command of a favorite general, Ustadoglu. Ismail designed to turn his enemy's wings with these two brigades and avoiding the Ottoman batteries, to take the Janissaries in the rear. He anticipated that Selim's light troops, the Azab, would, when charged, wheel away to the extreme right and left of the Ottoman line, so as to unmask the cannons, and he therefore ordered that his two brigades should not endeavor to break through the Azabs, but should wheel as they wheeled, so as to keep the Azabs between them and the artillery, until they were clear of the guns, and then ride in the flanks and rear of the Ottoman army. This maneuver seemed to more practicable, as Selim's cannons in each wing were chained together, so that it was almost impossible to change their position when the battle had once commenced. Full of confidence, the Persian cavalry galloped forward with loud cries of the Shah, the Shah, and the Turks raised the cry of Allah, and stood firm to meet them. He outflanked the wheeling Azabs, and then, bursting in on the left of the Ottomans, he drove them to confusion upon their rearguard. But on the other side of the field, Sinan Pasha, the commander of the Turkish right wing, outgeneraled his opponent Ustadoglu. Instead of wheeling his retreating Azabs away from the front of the batteries, Sinan called them straight back. Let them pass over the chains by which the guns were fastened together, and then poured in a deadly discharge upon the dense column of Persian horse that was galloping forward in close pursuit. Ustadoglu was one of the first that fell, and the whole left of the Persians was thrown into disorder, which a charge of Sinan Sipahis soon turned into utter rout. Victorious in this part of the battle, Selim was able to bring succor to his defeated troops, who had been broken by Shah Ismail. He led his Janissaries into action, and the Shah's cavalry, already somewhat exhausted and dismayed by their previous efforts, were unable to break this veteran infantry or long to endure their fusillade. The Persians had begun to waver when Shah Ismail himself fell from his horse, wounded in the arm and the foot. The Turk closed upon him, and he was only saved by the devoted gallantry of one of his followers, Mirza Sultan Ali, who rushed upon the Ottomans, exclaiming, "I am the Shah," while the enemy mastered Mirza Ali and examined his person. Ismail was raised from the ground. Another of his attendants, named Hizir, gave up his own horse, on which Ismail was mounted by those around him, and hurried from the field. The victory of Selim was complete, but it had been dearly purchased. No less than 14 Ottoman sanjak beys, lords and of standards, sanjak bey, lords of standards, lay dead on the field of battle, and an equal number of Khans who had fought on the Persian side had also perished. Selim took possession of his enemy's camp, in which were his treasures and his harem, including the favorite wife of the Shah. Selim put all his prisoners, except the women and children, to death, and then marched upon Tabriz, and entered the Persian capital in triumph. Selim levied on the conquered city a contribution of thousands of its most skillful artisans. These were sent by him to Constantinople, and received houses and the means of carrying on their respective manufactures in the Ottoman capital. After a halt of only 8 days at Tabriz, the Sultan marched northwards toward Karabakh, meaning to fix his winter quarters in the plains of Azerbaijan, and to resume his career of conquest in the spring. But the discontent of the troops at this prolongation of their hardships and their desire to revisit their homes broke out into such general and formidable murmurings that Selim was, like Alexander, compelled to give way and return with his victorious but refractory veterans towards Europe. His expedition, however, was not barren of important argumentation of his empire. The provinces of Diyarbakir and Kurdistan, through which he had marched against Ismail, were thoroughly conquered and annexed to his dominions. By the military skill of the generals whom he detached for that purpose, and still more by the high administrative ability of the historian Idris, to whom Selim confided the important duty of organizing the government of the large and populous territories, which had been thus acquired. The, the pacific overtures of Shah Ismail were haughtily rejected by the Sultan, and throughout Selim's reign there was war between the two great Mahometan sovereigns, in which the Persian arms were generally unsuccessful against the Turkish, so Shah Ismail maintained the contest with spirit and preserved the greater part of the territories under his sway. Selim's hatred against the Shii heretics and his warlike energy were unchecked throughout his life. But after the campaign of Chaldiran, he did not again bring the whole weight of the Ottoman power to bear upon Persia, nor did he himself again lead his invading armies against her. Syria and Egypt provide more tempting objects to his ambition, and the aggressive strength of the Mamluk rulers of those countries made a decisive contest between them and the Ottoman almost inevitable. The dominion of the Mamluks is one of the most remarkable phenomena in history, especially in the history of slavery. The word Mamluk or Mamluk means slave, and this body of oriental chivalry, which for nearly 6 centuries maintained itself in lordly pride in Egypt, which encountered Selim and Napoleon with such valor as to extort the admiration of those two great conquerors, and which, though often partially broken, was only destroyed by the darkest treachery in our own age. This military aristocracy of the East consisted of men who had been bought and sold and bred as slaves, and who recruited their own ranks, not from among the natives of the land which became their country, but from the slave markets of far distant regions. Malik Saleh of the Ayyub dynasty of the sultans of Egypt formed in the beginning of the 13th century, 100 years before the institution of the Janissaries, an armed corps of 12,000 slaves, chiefly native in the Caucasian countries. This from their servile condition were called Mamluks. Their discipline and military spirit soon made them formidable to their masters, and in 1246 they killed Toronshah, the last prince of the Ayyub dynasty, and placed one of their own body on the throne of Egypt. The first Mamluk sovereigns of Egypt were called Baharites. They conquered Syria, a country which the pharaohs, the Ptolemies, and all the various rulers of Egypt, down to the times of Napoleon and Mehmet Ali, have ever regarded as a necessary rampart for their dominions along the banks of the Nile. In 1382, Berkok, a Mamluk of Circassian race, overthrew the Baharite sovereign and founded the dynasty of the Circassian Mamluks, which continued to reign till the time of Selim's invasion. At this period, the military force of the Mamluks consisted of three classes of warriors: all-cavalry, superbly mounted and armed but differing materially in rank. First there were the Mamluks themselves, properly so called, all of whom were of poor Circassian blood, and who had all been originally slaves. The second corps was called the Gelbans, and was formed principally of slaves brought from Abyssinia. The third and lowest in rank was called the Corsans, and was an assemblage of mercenaries of all nations. There were 24 beys or heads of the Mamluks, and they elected from among themselves a sultan, who was called also Emirul Kebir, or chief of princes. He reigned over Egypt and Syria, and was also recognized as supreme sovereign over that part of Arabia in which the holy cities of Mecca and Medina are situated. The first war between the Mamluks and the Ottoman Turks broke out, as we have seen, during the weak reign of Bayezid II at Constantinople, and terminated to the disadvantage of the Sublime Porte. The Mamluk princes saw clearly that under Sultan Selim the vast resources of the Turkish Empire would be wielded in a far different spirit from that of his father, and they watched with anxious attention the conquest of the provinces of Diyarbakir and Kurdistan, which Selim made from the Persians, and which brought the Ottoman frontiers more extensively in contact with those of Egyptian possessions in Syria. The Sultan of Egypt, Kansu Ghavari, assembled a strong army of observation in the north of Syria in 1516. Sinan Pasha, the commander of the Ottoman forces in the southeast of Asia Minor, reported this to Selim and stated that they could not with safety obey the Sultan's order to march towards the Euphrates, while menaced by the Mamluks on flank and rear. Selim assembled his divan at Constantinople, and the question of war with Egypt was earnestly deliberated. The secretary Mohammed, who was distinguished for his scientific attainments, and whom Selim had raised to office as a mark of his regard for science, spoke strongly in favor of war and urged that it ought to be a point of honor with the Sultan of the Ottomans to acquire by conquest the protectorate of the holy cities. Selim was so delighted with the warlike speech of his favorite philosopher that he gave him the rank of the vizier and the spot. Mohammed at first declined the promotion, but Selim took a summary method of curing his scruples with his own royal hands. He applied the bastionado to the man whom he delighted to honor, till he diffident flower, follower of science, accepted the proffered dignity. It was resolved to wage war in Egypt, but messengers required submission were first to be sent. In obedience to the precepts of the Koran, Selim, however, did not delay his preparations for warfare until the result of the message was ascertained. He left Constantinople at the same time with his ambassadors and placed himself at the head of the intended army of Egypt.